everyone, so I'm going to talk about the common bristlenose, otherwise known as Ancistrus CF cirrhosus, and it might be common. We have all owned it, or do own it, or have seen it, because it is probably the most common loricardate in the trade. And we don't actually know what it is. Is it a hybrid? We don't really know. That's up to your interpretation and your opinion. But Ancistrus CF cirrhosus, meaning compared to Ancistrus cirrhosus. It is a selectively bred species, this one. And it does look similar to cirrhosus, but also a few other Ancistrus. And it's got a lot of variation. Like Siamese fighters, there is loads. And then even the wild type has a lot. And it's not really a wild type if you don't know what the wild fish is, but still. So the sort of easiest way to identify is using the wild type. You know that it has a very sort of dark brown coloration with lighter spots. They're usually quite tiny, but they're not going to be white spots, because there are the white seam Ancistrus, Ancistrus punctatus, species like that which do have white spots. They're more beige and they're slightly larger than that species, and generally the males have larger and more bristles, so the bristles will reach up the head more towards the eyes, and they're usually branched of age, whereas the females have none to very small, like spikes. Well, not really spikes, they are small tentacles around the head. So as I said, there's a lot of variation in this species, and so we have the albinos, and then also a sort of different variation, which is the blue eyes, often confused with the Ancistrus SPL144, which was a one-off import of one male fish that came from Paraguay. And this male fish did die. He looks very different from those blue eyes we see that are actually the Ancistrus CF cirrhosus. And these he is sort of that gold colour like the albinos, but he has sort of this, he almost looks ammonia burnt if he's not, even though he's not, but he has sort of a brownish tinge to him, and he isn't alive. So these fish did not originate from this L144. It's more of a sort of sales ploy now, and I'm not really sure if his eyes are actually as blue as these blue eyes that are in the trade. So then you've also got the green dragons, the calicos, the reds. I believe the calicos originate from the reds. So you get this sort of whole genetics, like Siamese fighters, with them. And people do breed them. You can sort of selectively breed, but they're very easy to breed. They will just the male guard and produce loads. So they are sort of this fish, we don't really know what they are, and it's expensive to do phylogenetic tests to match them up with someone, or match them up with a species and work out where they originate, but they are captively bred. And whether they're inbred would be difficult to say, because there are so many, and I guess the original imports would have been a lot. So how big do they get? They get to around 12 to 15 centimetre standard length. But it's more, the average is more than 12 centimetre standard length. I have seen some gigantic, 15 centimetre standard length individuals. And one of them was actually the parent to my Ancistrus CF cirrhosus. So I'm not expecting him to stay tiny. So they're not small. There are a lot of small Ancistrus. Ancistrus macropithalamus is one, but it's a very different fish, morphologically and behaviourally. But there are smaller ones around. So it's probably even better to look at they are quite big. So diet, omnivores Ancistrus CF cirrhosus, don't confuse with other Ancistrus. They are omnivores, this species, but more Ulfrich based, sort of more herbivorous. And they're not really fussy. You can feed them algophis. I prefer Pachysoylent Green, Ebio Spirulina, the Vitalis pleco weight pellets, that sort of thing. And that's what I feed most of mine on, most of my Lorcardia, and then they get additional ones depending on which species, how much meaty stuff they need in their diet, or how much sort of insectivore things. It's hard, I'm not very good at explaining. Should be encouraged, but it does mean they produce a lot of waste, and that should be taken into consideration with filtration, external filters. So I wouldn't say they're really the most beginner friendly. They are hardy, but they're not really like easy, because there's a lot of maintenance involved. And especially when it comes to breeding them, you're going to have a lot more of them to, so definitely external filters with a lot of mechanical filtration. So I would say they're somewhat similar to Panaculus. Not all Ancistrus do rasp at wood. Only my Ancistrus CF cirrhosus definitely does. So water parameters, they're pretty much unfussy, around 6 pH to 7.5. And temperature, they're really unfussy here. But I'd say around, well, you want long term between the sort of 24 to 27 degrees centigrade. But short term you could, especially if it's a heat wave, they will go above to around 29, 30 C. In winter, you can very much short term take them down to 21 degrees, but I wouldn't do it long term stress wise. So they are territorial. They do have these hypertrophoid odontodes on by the gillipercula, which do retract and sort of move. So they can do quite a lot of damage to each other if they want to. So I wouldn't say I would say you need a big tank if you want more, because even females on females will do damage on males on males, and between the two. So you want the space that they can have their own territories in, and it also help feeding wise. They are quite quick growers. Mine grew from a few centimetres. I got him as fry from someone that had too much fry, and I was like, I'm not taking too many if they get too big. But he grew from a few centimetres to now I think it's around 10 centimetres standard length, and it's been 11 months. So he is quite a fast grower. He is probably sexually mature. Do I have a female? No. Do I want to breed him? Probably not, because I don't know what I'd do with the fry. I'm not really interested in breeding anyway. And they are just a nice species. They are just high waist, so it's something to consider. And there is a lot of variation. There are some beautiful ones. You also get the long fins, which are really nice. But, well, not my cup of tea. I prefer loads of tentacles to the sort of long fins. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, please ask. I'm happy to hear people's opinions on their identity, what they think they actually originate from. And I might do an update video if we ever find out. But it is expensive to do phylogenetic tests, and it's not something many people will be interested in studying. Anyway, thank you for watching.